My name is Dana Coulter. I'm 39 years old, a registered nurse living in Macon, Georgia. And I still don't know if I was more heartbroken or just numb. That morning, I was on hour 3 of sleep, maybe less. The night before had been long and brutal. Our 4-year-old son, Caleb, had been up all night with a fever that wouldn't break. We'd been trading off cold compresses and Tylenol since 1 a.m., but around 5, my husband Matt insisted I get some rest because I had an early shift at the hospital. "You need your brain functioning," he said, kissing my forehead. "Let me take care of him. I'll work from home today." I believed him. God help me, I really believed him. That was the last moment I remember feeling safe. If you've ever looked at someone you love and realized suddenly that they've been lying to your face for months, then you know the kind of cold I felt that morning. Before we go further, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. These stories are real and sometimes raw. If you've ever been underestimated or lied to by the person who swore they loved you, I promise you're not alone. Now, here's what happened next. Macon in early spring is a confusing mix of dogwood trees blooming too early and the chill of leftover winter still clinging to the mornings. My breath fogged up the windshield as I sat in the hospital parking deck, trying to calm the tightness in my chest. I'd been debating whether to call the daycare and warn them I'd be late dropping Caleb off, before remembering he was supposed to be home, resting, with Matt. That's when my phone buzzed. A news alert about traffic on Route 80. There'd been a pileup, which was strange because that's not a road Matt usually takes to the office. He'd said he was working from home. But my gut, it clenched in this awful, knowing way. Something wasn't right. Without thinking, I tapped open the location sharing on my phone. Matt and I had each other's locations turned on since Caleb was born. Not out of distrust, just in case. It's what responsible parents do, right? And there it was. The little blinking dot labeled Matt wasn't at home. It was moving. Fast. Heading west, in the opposite direction of his office, and nowhere near our house. I don't know what came over me. Maybe it was the exhaustion, maybe the smell of antiseptic and coffee in the break room just pushed me past my limit. I texted my charge nurse and told her I'd be 30 minutes late, an emergency at home. I grabbed my coat, jogged back to the car, and pulled out onto the highway. I told myself I wasn't following him, that it was probably just a quick grocery run. Maybe picking up meds for Caleb? But the traffic cam alert? The lie about working from home? No. Something was off. I followed that blinking blue dot across town, my palms slick on the steering wheel. Caleb's dinosaur thermos rolled around in the back seat, the kind of little sound that normally calmed me, but not now. After 10 minutes of white-knuckle driving, Matt's location settled in an unfamiliar neighborhood near Oglethorpe Street. I knew this area. Quiet, older homes, big porches, and nosy neighbors. Not the kind of place for a work errand. I parked half a block away and sat there frozen. The house in question was powder blue with hydrangeas out front, a wind chime clinked gently on the porch. And Matt's car, a gray Subaru with a peeling baby on board sticker, was parked right in the driveway. You ever get that buzzing in your ears? Like your brain's trying to drown out what your eyes are seeing? That was me. I walked up the street in a fog, not even sure what my plan was. Knock on the door? Snoop around the side? Pray I was wrong? That's when the front door opened. I ducked instinctively behind a mailbox, heart pounding so loud I swear I could taste it. Matt stepped out on the porch, but he wasn't alone. There was a woman behind him, young, mid-20s maybe, wearing nothing but one of his t-shirts. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun. She was laughing about something. Laughing like They'd shared a private joke, like they'd done it before. My legs went numb. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I watched him lean in and kiss her forehead. Casual, familiar, the way he used to kiss me before I left for work. And then, this part plays like a loop in my head. He said, "I'll swing by later if the kid is still asleep. Shouldn't be a problem. She's got the shift from hell today." She. Me. That's what I was now. A scheduling detail. I stood there for a solid 2 minutes after he left, long enough to watch the girl close the door and disappear inside like it was her home. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked back to my car in total silence, sat down and stared at the dashboard like it could tell me what to do. My hands were trembling so bad I could barely hold the keys. I thought of Caleb, alone in that house, sick, his forehead hot with fever. I thought of the way Matt kissed his forehead that morning, told me to get some rest. Rest for what? So I wouldn't notice when he disappeared? No. Something in me cracked open. I wasn't going to be the quiet wife anymore, the one who made excuses, who carried the emotional weight while he played pretend. I called my neighbor, Karen, and asked her to check on Caleb. She said Matt had left around 7:45 and that Caleb had been asleep ever since. Alone. I stared down at my hands and whispered, "Not anymore." That was the moment I changed. Because betrayal isn't just about sex. It's about abandonment. It's realizing the person who promised to protect your child used that trust as a smokescreen. I had no plan yet, no idea how deep this went. But one thing was clear. I was going to find out everything. And when I did, he'd regret the day he ever thought I was just the nurse with a long shift and no time to notice. There's a strange kind of clarity that comes after betrayal. Not peace, no, peace was nowhere in sight, but clarity. Like something toxic finally burned out of your system, and now you're seeing the world for what it really is. That's where I was the next morning. I sat at our kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I never drank, watching the baby monitor we still used for Caleb even though he was almost 5. He was upstairs asleep, cheeks pink, fever finally breaking. Thank God for that. Matt was in the shower. I could hear the water running, smell his soap through the vents, and all I could think was, that's the same scent she smelled yesterday. He came down like nothing happened, smiled, kissed me on the cheek, said, "Thanks again for taking the brunt with Caleb. You're amazing." I stared at him, too numb to flinch. He didn't even notice the silence. He just opened the fridge and started making himself a smoothie like the world hadn't shifted sideways. That was the first moment I realized something terrifying. He wasn't sorry. He wasn't even nervous. He thought he was untouchable. I played it cool that day. Didn't ask questions, didn't change my tone, just smiled and nodded and acted like the tired, grateful wife he expected me to be. But inside, my mind was moving. I needed answers. All of them. So I started where I knew he'd never look. His own laziness. Matt wasn't the type to erase his tracks because he never thought anyone would bother following them. He'd always said I was too soft for confrontation, that I avoided conflict, that he loved that about me. He had no idea how wrong he was. That night, once Caleb was asleep and Matt was passed out in the recliner, I slipped his phone from the armrest and tiptoed to the bathroom. No password change. Amateur. I held my breath and opened his photos. He hadn't saved anything obvious, no nudes, no selfies with mystery women, but I noticed something weird, a folder called Work Receipts. When I opened it, there they were. Pictures of dinners, concert stubs, parking meters, tiny moments, things no one would ever question unless they looked too closely. But I work in trauma. I notice patterns. Same shoes in different photos, same couch, same mug, same framed print in the background, over and over. And none of it was from our house. I Googled the watermark on the coffee mug, some local ceramic studio near Vineville. Then I ran an image search on one of the framed prints in the background, some cliché quote about manifesting joy. The same print popped up in a listing for a townhome on Airbnb, powder blue, hydrangeas out front. My stomach flipped. It wasn't her house. It was their hideaway. He was renting it. He'd planned all of this. The next day, I pretended I had a double shift and dropped Caleb off with my mom. I spent my lunch break driving back to that blue townhome. I parked across the street, heart pounding, palms sweating against the steering wheel. The plan wasn't to confront anyone, not yet. I just needed to see her, understand the face he thought was worth risking our family for. And then I didn't have to wonder, because she came outside, wearing my husband's old Georgia Bulldogs hoodie, talking on the phone, laughing, and pushing a stroller. I froze. Not just because she was younger, not just because she was glowing in that way new moms glow, but because of the baby in that stroller. That baby had Matt's chin. I drove home like I was moving underwater. I couldn't cry, couldn't even breathe right. I just kept hearing Matt's voice in my head, telling me Caleb's fever was probably just stress from pre-K, that he'd been too busy for another kid right now. Another kid. He had another kid. And I wasn't supposed to know. That night, I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I saw someone I didn't recognize. Tired, betrayed, older than 39 somehow? And I made a decision. No more denial, no more waiting. If he wanted to treat our life like a lie, I was going to give him the performance of a lifetime. So I flipped the script. I cooked dinner, wore the sweater he said he liked, let him rub my feet like nothing was wrong. I let him think I was slipping right back into the rhythm of us. And while he slept, I took pictures. Of the receipts in his wallet, of the Google Maps routes he had used, of his Airbnb messages. Every piece of evidence. I opened a new email address under a fake name and sent it to myself. Then I called a friend. Her name's Callie. We met back when I worked ER, and she was with a legal nurse consulting firm in Atlanta. Smart, sharp as hell, and absolutely the wrong person to cross. She said, "Tell me everything, and don't leave out the ugly parts." So I did. And when I got to the baby in the stroller, I heard her inhale sharply. "Dana," she said, her voice low, "do you know if your name's still on the title of the house?" I said, "It is." "Why?" "Because," she said, "if he's got a second kid and he's spending your joint income on a secret home for them, this isn't just betrayal. It's fraud." That word? Fraud? It rang in my ears. I had been humiliated, lied to, replaced. But now it was criminal. I didn't sleep that night, just laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, my hand on Caleb's back as he slept beside me, feeling the tiny rise and fall of his breathing. He deserved better. So did I. But Matt? He was about to get exactly what he earned. The next morning, I called in sick. While Matt was in the shower, I left the baby monitor on and turned the TV to Caleb's favorite cartoon, then slipped out the front door. I drove back to the powder blue townhome, sat in my car, waited. Waited until I saw her come out again. Same stroller, same baby. But this time, I didn't look away. I got out of my car, crossed the street, and stood right in front of her. She froze. "Can I help you?" she asked cautiously. I looked her dead in the eyes. "Yeah," I said. "Actually, you can.
And then I smiled because her eyes went wide, and her next words shook the foundation of everything I thought I knew.
She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Not guilty, just stunned. "You're Dana," she said, blinking fast. "I didn't... He told me he said you moved out last year." That's when the baby started to fuss, and she instinctively rocked the stroller. Her eyes flicked up again, full of panic and confusion, but not malice. Not even close. We stood there for a long second, in that awkward limbo, where two lives crash into each other without warning. Then I said quietly, "I think we've both been lied to." She let out a breath and nodded, eyes glassy. "Come in, please." So I did. The place smelled like baby wipes and vanilla candles. Lived in, but not messy, and absolutely not some random hookup pad. This was someone's home. Her home. And she'd been building it with a man who, until 48 hours ago, still slept in my bed. Her name was Riley, 27, freelance copywriter. She met Matt a little over a year ago. He said he was recently divorced, sharing custody with a difficult ex. Claimed his name was Matthew Green, his middle name, and a slightly altered version of our real last name. A lie so subtle, you wouldn't even question it. They'd gone slow at first. He was charming, supportive, claimed his ex had emasculated him, took him for granted, made him feel small. I could practically hear the way he must have spun it. He always did love playing the victim. When Riley told him she was pregnant, she said he looked relieved, said he'd always wanted to get it right this time, said he'd never been allowed to be a real father before. I laughed when she told me that, not because it was funny, but because I finally understood the depth of his delusion. He wasn't just cheating, he was rebranding. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos, the receipts, the texts, the baby monitor footage of Caleb sleeping alone while Matt snuck off to play family across town. She sat back, silent. Then she whispered, "Oh my God, he's a sociopath." I didn't say no. What happened next didn't feel like revenge at first. It felt like strategy. We met twice more that week, once at a Starbucks on the edge of town, once at my friend Callie's office. Riley gave me everything. Screenshots, voicemails, payment receipts, even the Airbnb rental records. All under his name. Callie took one look at the paper trail and said, "This is rock solid. You're not just going after him for infidelity." I nodded. "I'm going after him for fraud, child abandonment, and whatever else sticks." We were building a case. And it wasn't just for court. It was for me. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday. I told Matt my mom had taken Caleb to the lake for the afternoon and that I had a surprise date planned for us. Something to spice things up. He grinned like an idiot, wore that awful cologne I always hated, said, "About time we had some fun again." I took him to a quiet restaurant in downtown Macon, one of those old brick places with a view of the river and no cell signal. And I told him everything. No yelling, no crying, just facts. That I knew, that Riley knew, that we'd compared notes, that I had evidence. His face turned from smug to pale in 30 seconds flat. "You talked to her?" he choked. I nodded slowly. We had a lot to talk about. Turns out your stories didn't quite line up. He tried to backpedal, said he was confused, said he was trying to leave Riley but didn't know how, said he stayed for Caleb. I looked him right in the eye and said, "You left Caleb alone to chase a fantasy. Don't you dare use him as a shield." By Friday, the legal wheels were turning. Callie helped me file for an emergency custody order and initiated proceedings for spousal fraud and child endangerment. We froze the joint accounts, locked the credit cards, changed every passcode, every login. Riley filed for a restraining order. And the best part? The townhouse lease was up for renewal, and Matt didn't know Riley had full signing authority on it. She let it lapse. The next time he showed up, bag in hand, looking for sympathy, he found the locks changed and a printed copy of the paternity test results taped to the front door. Yeah, that was the final twist. Turns out, Riley had been honest. Matt had lied to her so thoroughly, she believed they had a real future. But that baby, he wasn't the father, and he'd never asked for a test, because in his mind, just playing the role of a better man was enough. It wasn't. It's been 9 months now. The divorce is final. I have full custody of Caleb, and Matt's visitation is supervised, when he bothers to show up. He tried to fight it, of course, claimed I was poisoning Caleb against him, but after the judge saw the medical records, the nights Matt said he was caring for our son when he was actually across town, they didn't even flinch. He pays child support. Late, mostly. He's couch surfing these days. Lost his job once his employer caught wind of the legal drama. As for Riley, she moved to Savannah, got a new job, a fresh start, and sends me funny texts every once in a while. We're not best friends, but we survived the same storm, and that counts for something. As for me, I sleep now. Not just physically, but emotionally. The noise is gone, the second guessing, the shame, the feeling that maybe I was just too hard to love or too easy to leave. It wasn't me. It was him. The truth is, I never set out for revenge. I just wanted answers. But somewhere along the way, I found something better. I found myself again. And I'm not sorry for what I did. Because sometimes standing up and saying no more, that's the loudest kind of justice. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal, just know this. You're not broken. You're just finally free. Sometimes the best revenge is just becoming the person they never believed you could be. If you've ever experienced something like this, I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop your own tale of justice in the comments below. Your voice might just be the one someone else needs to hear.